Holy smokes, guys. As I was editing this video, we have some breaking news on silver. First one, International Stacker is reporting that the US Mint is suspending sales until they know where prices are going to go to. The US Mint has suspended sales. And just one more thing, CME Group to launch 100-ounce silver futures to meet record demand. So as you're listening to this video, understand that everything we're saying is magnified times 2.
Assets, the Western banks are reportedly sitting on massive silver short positions. And we're talking about 4.4 billion ounces short, Clive, which that is a phenomenal number. With global mine supply every year at 800 million ounces, that means these banks are shorting about 550% of the world's annual silver production.
Physical silver is gone and lawsuits are fixing to explode. And not only are we going to talk about that, we're also going to talk about the prices of silver and the fact that CME hiked the margin last night and silver didn't care because it exploded up even with that margin increase. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the complaints and reviews that are spiraling around the industry in regards to massive retail distributors. You guys, a lot of people are not getting the silver, including me, and I'm going to show you my order that they failed to meet. And we'll end talking about Basel III and that impact on silver, as well as talking one more time about the Federal Reserve and the fact we don't need them. Either way, you guys, buckle up because it's about to get bumpy. As of the recording of this video, look at this, guys. Silver is at $88.91. It's up 4.5%. And remember, this is despite the margin increase that happened last night from CME. And let me show you, before we get into that, the prices of Eagles right now. Silver Eagle coins, okay, they're selling for, if you get 1 to 19, $104.03 if you pay by check or wire. And I'm bringing this up because I wanted to tell you guys that's absolutely insane. You're getting into silver to get away from the government and to get away from their debauchery. If you guys are trying to purchase bullion or raw silver and you're buying Silver Eagles, you're paying a much higher premium than you need to. So remember this, $104, because what you really want to do is you want to get rounds. Just get some rounds. It doesn't have to be special. Now, these are collectible rounds from Walmart. I've been talking to you guys about this. And just to put this in perspective, so I showed you $104. This equals, when we divide this amount by 20 ounces, this is $92.95. 36 hours ago, I showed you that this was about $81. It's gone up $10 in less than 2 days. Now, obviously, Walmart, I thought people knew this, but Walmart doesn't have silver mines, okay? They're not actually selling silver. It's the third party. So if you want to know the third party and you come here, you can see right here that it's a Silvertown Mint, and they have their own reviews right here. So if you are ordering through Walmart, which is the only one that I can get silver from right now, make sure to do the seller reviews, which you can click on right here. But either way, what I'm trying to say, if you're trying to get bullion and you're buying Eagles, just my opinion, they're ripping you off. Now, as far as the CME margin hike, here's what Echo X is saying on X. What this means, shorting metals just got way more expensive. Over-leveraged paper traders get squeezed faster, and forced covering equals higher volatility. And here's the letter right here, you guys. You can see here, this came out Monday the 12th of 2026, and they not only increased their margin, but they also converted it to a percentage versus a dollar amount. That's very interesting. You guys can see that this takes effect right here, Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. But again, there is such a lack of physical silver and such a high demand that the prices blew right past this. Also, something that's very interesting, Secretary Scott Bensent convenes finance ministerial on securing critical mineral supply chain. So he's talking to people right now to secure the supply chain. I wonder if that has anything to do with silver. This came out yesterday. So they're aware of what's going on with silver right now. The problem is, guys, is nobody is telling us the truth like normal. Also out on X is Robert Kiyosaki saying, please be careful. Silver's peaking. There will be a major pullback before it begins climbing again. I stand by what I'm doing. I will buy silver up to $100 and wait. And then he goes on and he's basically says when it hits $100, he's going to start converting silver to gold. But I would ask him, if it hits $100 and it's still going parabolic, why would you sell silver when there's no remedy for the demand? And I wanted to play this video to show you guys why, as mom and pop, we need to stand together and we need to hold physical silver, because this is how money, fiat money, is created. I really want you guys to pay attention. I'm going to put this on mute and I'm going to play this for you because this is how money is created. So what is the true value of a $100 bill? Well, the true value of a $100 bill is 11 cents. And this is what they're doing, guys. That's our money right there. They're just giving this out. Do you guys see the problem here? We need something to back our fiat currency, because if it's not backed, they're just going to print it like you see here, and they're going to distribute it across the world, which is going to destroy and has already destroyed our cost of living and our purchasing power. Now, Mitch, our next segment is going to be on the reviews, the demand, and the potential lawsuits. But first, I want to get you to articulate whether or not the true financial weapon of mass destruction, maybe a little bit mortgage-backed securities, right? Maybe the derivatives, but can't we say the true weapon of financial mass destruction at this point is the US dollar?
It's an interesting question. The issue is maintaining the strength of the US dollar. And to that point, so if Mr. Besant has declared silver as an element, silver as a mineral, and silver as a necessity for U.S. national security, then that adds to the industrial demand and the sovereign demand for the metal. And that is what more than likely we are seeing play out. With regard to your comment about Walmart, if Walmart was in the mining business, we wouldn't be having the logistics problem that we're currently having. And Walmart knows what they're doing. They can deliver an apple from A to Z, no problem. And that's part of what it is that we're looking at. And it does tie to Basel III, which you had touched on, in that silver, be it the physical commodity, is classified as a tier 1 capital, meaning if the banks hold it on their balance sheet, it's as good as cash. Same thing. Well, then you have a tangible asset, the bank, but if the bank is sitting on paper because somebody else has the metal and somebody else has physically leased that physical metal to a bank, that's not the same as having it in your possession. And we said, if it's in your possession, you own it. It's got nothing to do with what the banks are doing. It has nothing to do with the delay of logistical delivery, because there's an awful lot of pressure problems in this market. And we're going to touch on that. I've got a spreadsheet coming up that Travis is going to get into in a minute that lays out exactly how bad the demand is that isn't getting filled. And that's why everybody is being delayed in their delivery.
I'm glad you brought up demand, because let's start this next segment looking at just that. Here's the demand for silver. This says 2019, but I looked at the 2024. It's almost the exact same thing. This isn't real. And that's the point I'm trying to make with showing you this. But when we look at physical silver, this is a little bit more accurate. And what this is not showing you guys is the paper silver. If it was just showing you guys paper silver, this would all probably equal 1%. The amount of paper silver contracts exceeds total silver by like 300 times. And it's not even in this pie chart. That's the manipulation. That's why there's such high volatility. And that's why things are breaking right now. It's not even showing us that. But when we look at just physical silver, look at this, 47% is industrial. That's as of 2019, before the Green New Bill and before the data centers and before all of that. The industrial demand right now is skyrocketing. Jewelry, 18%. But look at, here's my gripe. Net physical investment is showing 17%. If this was just investments, what would this be? 99.999%? It's not even giving us the true picture of how messed up these banks are really. These banks are cooked. And it's not just the banks that are cooked. It's also the big retailers. We're going to go into the complaints and the reviews on what's going on the retail side. But I first want to show you guys, and I want to be transparent about my own order that they have not fulfilled. Just to prove to you guys beyond a shadow of doubt what's happening, because we're going to look at reviews after this, and it is atrocious. Here's my order. Look at December 26, 2025, one day after Christmas. I got in physical at $79.34. It wasn't a lot. Don't worry, I'm not buying a lot, but I wanted to put my money where my mouth is. Now look at this, okay? I paid with a personal check. It's a hassle, but it's the cheapest way to do this, usually until I found Walmart, of course. But look at this. It specifically says here, free shipping, 5 to 10 business days once shipped. Now look at the bottom. once your payment has been received, which by the way, it's right here. My payment was not only received, it was cleared December 30th. And according to my own order, when I placed this, they said, once your payment has been received, not cleared, it was received prior to the 30th. I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt here. And let's just scratch that. And let's just take when you got my money. Okay. Please allow 5 to 10 business days for your payment to fully clear and your order to process. Well, my payment has been cleared over 10 days. And to really prove this to you guys that they are failing us as consumers like crazy, I emailed them right before making this video. You can see this. Look, January 13th, SD Bullion, which is where I made the order. They sent me back an automatic response saying, please note, historic silver demand. Please note, we will respond to you in 24 to 48 hours. But they're not responding to me. And when I call them, the wait times are over an hour. You guys, there's something seriously wrong going on here. So I asked myself, well, am I the only one that's going through this, or are there other people? So what I did is obviously I started looking at reviews, and here's what I found. So here's SD Bullion. This is the BBB, okay? And what I wanted to show you is, first of all, is this first comment. And by the way, I have a report on here. It's not showing up. So I'm wondering if BBB, if you're watching, why isn't my complaint showing up here? I've already complained. I'll show you guys proof of that, but it's not even showing up. In fact, look at when I put most recent, it's still this one that comes up. When I change this to highest rating, look, it stays there. When I change it to lowest rating, look, it stays there. So my question is this just an advertisement? Is it? It's not moving. It's staying there. But when I keep going down, let's go back to the most current. Look at this. As of 1/5/2026, Leslie is upset because of her order through SD Bullion. The company charged her credit card on December 28th. I feel you, Leslie. They did the same thing to me, but did not ship out my order of silver bars as promised. The sales representative was rude. Here's another one from a few days ago. 1-star rating. I have never had a more terrible experience with a company selling a product. I ordered a kilo of silver, of which I never received. You guys can come back here on your own, but look at this. 1-star rating, 2-star rating, 1-star rating. It all has to do with not receiving their silver. So then obviously I was like, well, let me go to another reporting agency and let me check SD Bullion there. So I did. I went to Trustpilot. And by the way, I'm going to show you multiple retailers. So I went to SD Bullion and let's see what their most recent reports say. So you guys can see here, look at most recent. I selected the 1-star 18 hours ago. 18 hours ago. And by the way, I also reported on this and it's not here. So I have a complaint on here. It's just not showing up for some reason. But 1-star SD Bullion, horrible customer service, awful experience with orders. They're also saying 3 to 4 calls. They declined it. They still don't have their stuff. It keeps going super slow. Will not order again. Been 2 weeks. No status update. Look at waited and waited, never received. That's from 3 days ago from Dawn. Look at Joel right here, awful experience. Here's another one from Tony, 1-star, awful customer experience. Another one, 1-star. I ordered and paid for silver by wire and have not received a shipping or tracking number as of 1/6/26. Rich, I feel your pain because the same thing happened to me. Here's another one from December 29th. Warning, beware. Here's another one from 29th. This was my first and likely last experience. Look at this receipt. You guys, you got to come back here and you got to see what's going on. Because again, it's not just SD Bullion that's having these issues. When I go to EPMEX, look at, let's scroll down. Okay, we're just going to scroll down again. We're going to the most recent 1-star. Look at this, 16 hours ago. Positive intent shaped my start. They blocked funds, created heavy stress, yada, yada, yada. Here's one from Stephen Smith 20 hours ago. Sat and hold for an hour. Here's another one, 1-star. If I can give them the company 0, I would. Here's one from Greg 2 days ago, 1-star. Here's one from AH 4 days ago, 1-star. Took over 2 weeks to get a refund. So a lot of these people are getting frustrated and they're asking for a refund. And instead of them just saying, hey, we don't have your silver, we're going to give you a refund plus whatever you lost, they're charging these people. Look at, they're still just 1-star. They're charging these people $95 to cancel. They have trapped us, including myself. You see that? I don't have an update. I don't even have a tracking number. I don't know when or if they have my silver. Where's my silver? You already have my money. Now let's go here, Money Metals. I was like, there's no way, right? Money Metals is like super expensive and always saying they have silver. So when I go down, just like I showed you before, most recent 1-star, look at 50% 1-star ratings. Look at this, incorrect coin. Here's another one, 1-star. Be careful with buying not physical. Secure Volt scam from Money Metals. Uh-oh, that's scary. I bought some silver from Money Metals, never received my order. That's not good. Within 10 minutes, price locked, and they dropped it And then other debauchery, if you read this from Holmes, 1 star, Debbie, 1 star, December 1st. I mean, this is bad, you guys. Again, let's just keep going. Here's bullion exchange. Let me scroll down and show you guys the same thing that's happening. Okay, 1 star, ordered online, 1/1/26, credit card was deducted to my account. All these phone calls later and emails, they're wondering if this is a scam. They're not the only one. Look at this person as well. January 2nd, this company will not send you the correct address you fill out on their form. That's scary. Are they sending my silver somewhere else? Here's another one. It just keeps going. Come back here, you guys, and see what's going on. But I wanted to show you one more. Most people have heard JM Bullion. Okay, let's see what's going on with JM. Okay, look at this, 15% 1 star, 15 hours ago, awful experience and customer service. Another one, 0 stars. When they buy something from you, here are the steps. Another 1 star, I will honestly give them -stars, okay? Stole back ordered product and margin. That's not good. Here's another one. That's also not good. All of these 1 stars are absolutely terrible. But what I think is it's telling us a bigger story of what's happening under the covers. Mitch, it seems like ain't nothing going to hold back silver. We got margin calls. We got margin increases. It's still exploding. It appears even retailers don't even have the physical silver. So can you go over this amazing chart you just made on the silver shortage? And if you can you kind of articulate why it's likely that lawsuits are potentially fixing to explode?
It's not just that the retailers, as you're calling them, don't have it. Those would be the broker dealers, but it may be up the entire chain. So we'll go through this and try to quantify exactly what's going on. So the CME and the other exchanges were permitting way too many silver contracts as compared to physical in somebody's possession. So you have to remember that silver's contract is backed by actual physical silver. But if they take delivery of the physical through the options contracts and the silver isn't there to be had, the face value of the contracts is not what people think it is. Now, with that said, what I've been able to quantify is that the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Registry, claims 440 million ounces in their depository. So I've got that under column B, 440 million. The silver open interest on the Chicago Merc is 150,200 contracts. Now that bops up and down by the minute, but let's call it as it is. 150,200 under column B. Each contract is worth 5,000 ounces. 5,000 ounces times 150,200 contracts under column B, 751 million. That's million ounces. The shortage of physical, based on this information, is 1.7 times, meaning the physical doesn't exist in the depositories of the Chicago Merc. Now, we have other depositories, but they're running into the same problem, which is they don't have the physical. So the dollar value, just on what we're talking about here with regard to the Chicago Merc, is 65 billion. The dollar value of the shortage is 27 billion. So let's review some of the issues and you'll see how all this ties together. The derivatives on which are part of the options, that's the leverage in the system. That's the third-party credit risk. And that's the paper, not the physical. That's over and above what we're talking about here. Those people that have options, if they were to stand for delivery, it is clear, just based on the Chicago Merc alone, that they're 27 billion short. SLV is an ETF, it's silver ETF. They're supposed to have physical holdings quantified and verified. However, has that metal that they're holding been leased out or collateralized? Same with the GLD, that's the gold ETF. Has the metal that they have been leased out or collateralized? One could make the argument if they leased it out, it's off balance sheet. With regard to the COMEX, the leverage, and if delivery is demanded, would that equate to systemic failure of the COMEX? You could ask the same thing about the Chicago Merc. And between the COMEX, the Chicago Merc, and the LBMA, London Bullion Market, are all three of those in the exact same boat, meaning the pattern and practice of we can lease out the metals, we can unaccount for it by virtue of off balance sheet. Is that not the pattern and practice between all three of them? And remember, those numbers above are just the Chicago Merc. So that brings us to the next position. The Federal Reserve reverse repo. Has the Fed already been tapped to head off the cash crunch at these entities? And the reason why this is so important is because we're only talking about the Chicago Merc, and that's 27 billion. Add in these other entities, how many billions shortage is that? Now, let's just take all this information that we've got. This is just the United States. Let's extrapolate this data globally, and you begin to see how many billions, hundreds of billions could be flushed down and a potential systemic crash of these entities. Would the Federal Reserve allow that to happen? Probably not. They'll say, fine, we'll come in because eventually silver can be replaced. It's physical. Eventually they can mine it and they can make good. However, with that said, in the meantime, you've had a $10 run in less than 10 days. Well, that's profit. So if you bought it 10 days ago, and now these entities, the broker dealers are saying, well, we're going to give you back your money. Well, does that include your lost profit? And that brings us to the next point, the class action lawsuits. I'm quite certain as we speak, even though more time needs to occur here to see what the truth is, the class action attorneys are sharpening their fangs because class actions have already occurred, as you know, with regard to airlines. This is a very similar problem in that you've got issues of promising and not delivering. Airlines have done the same thing, rebookings, all sorts of nonsense that they've done. If it ends up being some sort of systemic problem at one of these entities, you got to get the cash back. That's what you paid, but you're also entitled to your lost profit. Who's going to make good on that? That's $10. Let's call it, for the sake of conversation, at 440 million ounces at $10. This is a lot of money. This is billions. Can these entities stand good for billions in lost profit and not deliver the physical? Not a chance, because most of these entities all have leverage built into them. They're not designed to run on a cash basis. They're designed, just like the banks, to have, give or take, 8% equity. Well, your 8% equity just got wiped out by multiples. Probably, legitimately, to Travis's point, you're probably closer to a multiple of 150 to 1, because the leverage versus $10 is just absolutely massive. The next point, which is the sovereign wealth fund, who's pushing the buttons here and for what purpose are they pushing the buttons? To be determined. The point is, it's the leverage in the system that has caused this. It's the leverage in the system that has prohibited the physical from matching the leverage. It's simply too much leverage. It's too much debt. Therein lies the problem.
You know, Mitch, I'm just a simple man trying to desperately avoid bankruptcy. I don't even have a lot of money. I scrounged up as much as I could, put my money where my mouth is, invested some. We're past the 10-day mark. They have my money. Silver is now roughly 12% higher than when I purchased that last order. At what point should I start to worry?
First of all, worrying isn't going to do anybody any good.
True,
You're going to have to ride the course and ride the program, because assuming some class action attorney steps up, they're going to issue a notice. And the notice is you have to give people the opportunity to cure. So this is a legal technique. It's a waste of time, but the bottom line is notice and opportunity to cure needs to be delivered. If they fail at that point, then they'll start filing the lawsuits. Individually, can a person attempt to do this against these type of entities, no, that would be an exercise in foolishness. Don't do that. But when the class action attorneys step up, that's a whole different program. Ideally, this gets solved before that occurs. Even if the deliveries are slow, these entities owe it to the people that have put money in to say, here's our anticipated delivery schedule. And so far, they haven't done it. So it's the entities themselves, the broker dealers, that are causing, I wouldn't say panic, but extreme concern. Right now, probably shouldn't be. You know, you get 30 or 40 days in arrears and there's still no answers. Okay, now we have something to talk about.
Well, Mitch, because it's my money, they've taken it already. So they've taken my money. They've promised me a certain time frame. They've exceeded the time frame. They won't pick up my phone calls. So I'm not willing to wait over an hour or even close to that. There's an automatic response to their emails. Why wouldn't I be worried? Why wouldn't I want to go drive down there, knock on the door and say, hey, where's my silver? What's stopping me from doing that? What can we offer mom and pop right now to settle their nerves? Because this is stressing me out. And I know I shouldn't. Okay. I know that, Mitch. All right. But I do. I'm not special. I'm normal. I'm emotional. I'm stressed out. I want to go there. I want to knock on the door and say, where's my money and where's my silver? Why should I not do that?
Because this is going to get you anywhere. Unfortunately, we have to wait for the time limit to go and see how this plays out. Because think this through for a second. What makes you think that the broker dealer actually has your money? Because they have to turn around and they've got to place their order. So again, this is a logistics problem that should never have occurred. And it is the exact same pattern in practice with regard to the real estate taxes and the bonds. Nobody has been able to tabulate truly the amount of bonds that are in default because they don't want to. Nobody has been able to tabulate truly the amount of gold and silver physical as compared to the derivatives because they didn't want to, except now it's come home to roost. The years of shenanigans by the COMEX and the LBMA, the artificial price controls that they have put in place to drive these metals down has now come back to haunt them. And could this be a systemic problem, A, for those entities, or B, for the entire market? In other words, what purpose do we really need COMEX for? If you're better off dealing peer-to-peer, you don't need a COMEX. You don't need the Chicago Merc. You know, the Merc is necessary for options, but not from a standpoint of physical peer-to-peer. The truth is going to play out very shortly because enough people will get annoyed. And like I said, I'm quite certain as I am speaking, there are a handful of large class action attorneys across the United States sharpening their fangs. They see it. We see it. But jumping up and down and getting all pissed off isn't going to help. You got to stay calm. You'll see in the press, so-and-so is now launching a class action. You can join that class action if it comes down to it. But 10 or 15 days, which is what we're talking about here, is not enough. The notice and opportunity to cure needs to go out. When you see that hit the press, that's when you start to get really concerned. And that's when you get involved.
In the sake of honesty, I feel a lot worse after that answer. It makes you feel a lot worse, right? Because mathematically, why would they go through all these horrible customer service complaints and destroy the reputation of their companies if they actually had the product that we're ordering? Now let's move on to our next segment where we're going to talk about the Federal Reserve. And I first want to talk about Basel III and Basel III's impact on Tier 1 capital, which is silver and other metals. Now, I got this breakdown from Gainesville Coins. They put this out mid-year, June 25th, 2025. This is Basel III and silver, what it means for investors in 2025. And I'm just going to read a couple paragraphs and we'll move on. So the implementation of Basel III banking regulation marks a watershed moment for silver investors, creating unprecedented opportunities alongside significant market disruptions. While gold captures more regulatory headlines, silver's extreme paper-to-leverage ratio of 300 to 1 positions it as potentially the bigger beneficiary of these sweeping changes. As Basel III forces banks to unwind decades of paper silver positions, investors who understand these regulatory shifts can position themselves ahead of what industry experts describe as a coiled spring, ready to propel silver prices significantly higher. Now, I thought that was very interesting because I didn't realize until a couple of days ago that Basel III impacted tier one silver, but it makes sense because if it's considered tier one capital, well, then that makes sense. Now, let's listen to this young man and let's listen to what he says about the Federal Reserve.
I've long been in favor of abolishing it. I think there is no institution in the United States that has such a high public standing and such a poor record of performance. The Federal Reserve System was established in 1914, started operation in 1914. It presided over a doubling of prices during World War I. It produced a major collapse in 1921. It had a good period from about 1922 to about 28. Then it undertook actions which led to a recession in 1929 and 30. And it converted that recession by its actions into the Great Depression. The major villain in the Great Depression was, in my opinion, unquestionably, the Federal Reserve System. Since that time, it presided over a doubling of prices during World War II. It financed the inflation of the 1970s. On the whole, it has a very poor record. It's done far more harm than good.
And then I want to play you guys this clip because, as you guys know from the video we did yesterday, Jerome Powell is now under criminal investigation. And this is the exact moment where Trump set him up when they were walking through the Federal Reserve building. Watch what President Trump does and watch Jerome Powell's face.
Billion, it went up a little bit or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
I noticed that at about 3.1 as well.
3.1.
3.2.
This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added.
Our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building is what that is. That's a third building.
Well,
including
no,
the
but
Martin building.
it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's
So,
not new.
So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what's happening.
So according to Jerome Powell, that massive expense doesn't matter because it's already built. These wackos, these absolute wackos, okay, we're talking about the money that you're spending. Whether the building's there or not there, it doesn't matter. You're still spending the money. So I wanted to play this one clip because apparently tax season's around the corner, and apparently each and every one of us is about to get a massive tax return. Now, I don't know if that's true. Well, listen to what Mr. President Trump says.
Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year. And next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time.
And just one more clip about the Federal Reserve from our friend, ex-chairman Alan Greenspan.
The United States can pay any debt it has because we can always print money to do that. So there is zero probability of default.
Mitch, we must abolish the Federal Reserve. It's unfixable. So can you articulate what's going on here? And can you articulate whether or not we need a new currency that is backed by some type of asset like gold and silver and things of that nature? Why is it dire to America to switch the way we value our currency?
To help everybody understand how bad this situation is, the video that Travis and I did a couple of days ago called Trump, No More Property Tax, was a direct plea from myself to President Trump and the politicians also dealing with the Federal Reserve. I have not seen that clip from Milton Friedman where he wants to abolish the Federal Reserve. But interestingly enough, on my website is a document called The Federal Reserve is a Failure, Part 1 and Part 2. It's under Articles, Letters, and Discussions. You can get to it from the upper link in the left-hand side, and you can just do a word search on it. The two largest purveyors of fraud in the United States are the Federal Reserve and the central appraisal districts, which are controlled by the school districts. That's a fact. Over and above that, it's interesting that President Trump was standing in the new, under construction Federal Reserve building valued at over $2 billion. Well, what I find so interesting about it is that the central appraisal districts, including the Denton Central Appraisal District, have had their hand out for money to expand their buildings. They don't need expansion. They need to be shut down, first thing. Second thing is, do you realize that taking other people's money, taxpayers' money, and putting it in your pocket, $2 billion under the Federal Reserve and millions in the case of Denton Central Appraisal District for a new building, that is the definition of socialism. This is exactly what I was saying in that video when I was pleading with President Trump in the video. These are the truths. When you steal other people's money, you cannot think you are not going to be held liable. And unfortunately, as you will see in that video, somebody paid the ultimate price that should never have happened. With regard to Greenspan, okay, that's got to be the dumbest statement in the history of the planet. Let's get something straight. Printing money is a de facto default when it's not backed by assets to begin with. That was just gibberish. He's a smart guy. He should know better. However, he too had a very interesting bend as a socialist. With regard to Travis's point on the currency, what are we going to do? Well, a currency can be created using multiple commodities. You can create a bucket. As long as it's backed by assets, you can create a bucket. It can be part gold, part silver, part platinum, part rhodium, part palladium, part copper, part corn, soy, wheat. It's okay to use commodities because you're establishing the floor. That's perfectly fine. What you can't do is just keep printing money for socialist bend materials that do nothing for the benefit of society. You have got to peel the fraud back. And that's been my point on this. If you think you're going to use the Federal Reserve and print your way out of this, you're delusional. This isn't going to work. You're starting to see this now with regard to the metals that can't be delivered. Now, I think and I hope that that'll straighten itself out. But if it can't, do you understand how big a problem this is? Because who else can't make good on their promises? It's called unfunded liabilities. 127 trillion plus cannot be made good. And it all comes down to one thing. The median household income doesn't exist to pay for these socialist policies. As I said, when President Trump was running for office, he's going to win and he's going to be able to blunt the blow, but he won't be able to stop it. As time has progressed, we've learned an awful lot in the last year, and the pattern and practice of hiding what is truly on balance sheet issues by not putting them on the balance sheet is why we are where we are. These entities, with regard to the precious metals, are in big trouble. If they are lucky, somehow the materials will show up and this will straighten itself out. Even if it takes the Federal Reserve and the IRS and everybody else to get involved and say, okay, we've got a handle on this. We know what's going on. IRS investigators, SEC investigators, et cetera. That would be better than the alternative where they all get wiped out, because the gap between the wipeout and the recrystallization of peer-to-peer, I can buy that metal from this entity, they've got it. That gap is dangerous. And it's just like the property tax, interestingly enough. 5.1 trillion of outstanding school district bond fraud. By itself, it is big enough that the tail will wag the dog. To try to print their way out of this, either way, this is a huge problem.
Yeah. In fact, it's so huge. My recommendation would be this: fire the IRS agents. We just heard multiple comments, nothing legal, but multiple comments like, oh, no more income tax. Fire the IRS agents and hire SEC agents to help us uncover the bond. We need to get rid of the bad. We need to bring in, just my opinion, 10,000 more SEC investigators because we got the fraud. It's a pattern in practice. It's happening every single state, which brings me to this last thing. Mitch Vexler and I are not, I repeat, we are not silver salesmen. We are fighting to make change for us all. And if you want to see that fight, if you want to know how that fight's going, if you want to join the fight, start by going to mockingbirdproperties.com, click DCAT on the upper right here. This is Mitch's website. You can actually click the 3 buttons on the upper right. You can search for things. Here's the tab, letters, articles of discussion, sign the petition to abolish property taxes. Remember, you guys, property taxes is the most regressive tax in history. If we abolish property taxes, we automatically help Generation Z, first-time home buyers, and senior citizens all at the same time while creating deflation for everything. And that's why we have to abolish property taxes on every single property, like for farmers, small businesses, grocery stores. It will create deflation. Now, when you've learned a little bit, I want you to come to my website, realestatemindset.org, and I want you to start taking the courses. The sooner that you guys learn, the better, because I designed this entire platform for you guys to learn, then become teachers, then teach your communities. Here's one that's abolishing property taxes. You guys can come here. Here's a video on that, but this is an entire course I made. It took me forever to make this course, how to end property taxes. The amicus is right here. The bill is right here. And I also made you guys a quiz. This is a free quiz. Take this quiz. This quiz is based on the amicus and it's based on this 1-page talking point form. You guys can literally print out 1 page and have all the talking points on why we need to abolish property taxes. And here's the FOIA request right here, and 2 websites down here, which is commonsenselaw.org. That's Jeff's website. And then I have linked back Mockingbird Properties as well. So when all is said and done, you guys, it is literally all hands on deck. We can either sit back and let other people do the fighting for us and possibly go bankrupt, or you can decide to stand. You could take a camera. You can go to these councils, you can go to these boards, and you can try to hold them accountable by taking the debauchery and putting it into the public court, which is basically Facebook. Facebook is so good at handling local issues. Now, I'm fixing to get out of here. I'm going to start making some advocacy courses today. I'm going to re-upload those into my website. Hopefully, by the time this video comes out, you guys have new advocacy videos. To everyone that's been supporting us, I appreciate you. We're going to continue. We will not stop fighting. And other than that, guys, comment below, hype the video if you can, share the video. And if you guys are just out there trying to figure out what's going on, trying to get your silver that you've already ordered and you're frustrated, I wish you patience and I hope you win.